Hey everybody, how are you? Alrighty. So I rested a day because doing those 8 or 10 videos really kind of kicked my butt. I found this from the Drudge, and like everything else over the last 3 days, U.S. stocks have pretty much been tumbling. And with it, it's taken the U.S. petrodollar with it. I'm actually very unhappy that Congress and somebody else hasn't stepped up to actually do something about regulating the petrodollar and keeping it at, say, I don't know. I'm always going to say $85 a barrel would probably be a sufficient price to allow a decent economic status and everything else, but there are others who say you could let it go down to 60, and others say you should just keep it at $100 and be done. But basically, our gas prices per gallon should be, in a good market, folks, they should be $1 a gallon, and our petrodollar should be $100 a barrel. Well, those numbers don't exactly add up, but in a good economy, that would be what it would be worth. But U.S. stocks are starting to plunge, and oil with it. So basically, I'm getting this from the Drudge, and U.S. stocks tumbling with Dow Jones Industrial Average plunging more than 370, having small caps entering a bear market. And I've watched this. I've been watching the news, and whether it's TV, whether it's radio, whether it's internet, everybody's saying if somebody doesn't get a hold of our oil situation soon, it's going to cause the entire country to sink, and it's basically going to cut off us from the rest of the world, and then nobody's going to buy our oil, and then we're going to basically be stuck with a bunch of oil, and our price is going to be so freaking low that nobody's going to want to buy it, and just the opposite too, that everybody's going to want to buy it, and that basically we're going to affect the market to where oil is so cheap it's worthless. So that's why everybody's worried about the oil prices. I'm not aware of where they are right now, but about 2 weeks ago they were like $35 a barrel. Maybe that was better part of a month ago. But anyways, folks, it was bad. I mean, back when they were $180 a barrel, or the oil was $180 a barrel, that's when we saw like $3 gas prices. So it's getting bad, folks. With the oil failure basically maintaining a 4% rally, rekindled, basically it risked assets. Treasuries surged amid signs that demand relative safety bonds, and the safety bonds were rising. A company called Standard & Poor's 500 index fell past 1900, a level it's closed before only 5 times the past 14 months. Nasdaq fell 100 and had its worst day on August 24, as selling was heaviest in technology and consumer shares. Russell Index capped at 22% slide in June record. I'm not going to read any of these because if you're not a stock person, most of these are things you and I have never heard of, and you and I will never really see these numbers again, so what's the point? But whether it's the S&P 500 that sank 2.5 points at 4 p.m. in New York, the 3.4% with losses, heaviest in Amazon Inc., Netflix. Healthcare shares sank 2.9% with financial stocks. in the S&P 500 fell the lowest since 2014. So everything's plunging, folks. You got to understand, when these things drop a point or a percent, that's probably very close to being a few $1,000,000. I mean, we're talking, if the average market drops a single point, there's probably $100 million that has supposedly been lost. Or technically it's not lost, because if you take it out at that point, it's lost. But if you just let it go back to where it was or higher, then you didn't lose it. One of our good old boys, JP Morgan and Chase Co. This year had a tumble, at least partly attributed to robotics selling by quantitative investors who were forced to rebalance their funds when stocks and bonds fell in January. So even JP Morgan's feeling it, folks. Chicago Board Options Exchange Volatility Index climbed 11 points, or 11% to 2493, but that was in July, and they just have everything here, folks. And at the bottom of this, they say benchmarks are in South Korea, Philippines, Thailand, Turkey. Those only climbed to 1.3%, or at least 1.3%. Russian stocks rose for a second day, increasing 0.5%, which is a gauge of 20 emerging market currencies added 0.3%, ending in an 8-day slump. And basically, with all that gobbledygook, they're still referring to Russian, and the Russian ruble gained, for the first time in 5 days, 0.9%. So 90% of 1%, or 0.9%, I guess I'd say. So I've never really watched the ruble. I'm not even certain where the ruble is with the world and their current market value. I think the current ruble is like, I want to say somewhere around 75% the US dollar. Because I know Australia is something like 85% the US dollar. And I know Canada's note is 1.3 US dollars, so it's 30% over our dollar. So that's good. But to be honest, I don't know where half of Europe is. I don't know any of those places. I don't even know where the Afghan currency or even the name for the UAE currency is, because that's not something that I usually would go into. But when I need it, I look it up and I refer to it. And a good financial source that I've always used when I wasn't actually buying and using stocks was Yahoo Financial. That's always a great source. I think the current URL is www.finance.yahoo.com, unless they changed it. So, U.S. stocks and oil are plunging. Like anything else, it's just early January and things are probably leveling out. But I noticed even my YouTube stuff, everything's kind of going up. But it wasn't quite as good as it was in December, so thanks, guys.